And we are live here on the Impact Money Show. Welcome on your TV screens in Texas and Louisiana. We're on the Smart Money TV network, as well as streaming around the world on X, LinkedIn, YouTube, and more. We are obviously the world is on fire. It's on fire as we go into our day here. The markets are a bit tepid as we go in. Gold is down a bit, The crypto is down a bit. You have some of the stocks that are kind of tepid, and we'll see a little bit of pullback on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, which has been outperforming over the last little bit. That's for sure. We're going to have two guests on today. Two guests we have on today. One is Nate Snyder. Nate Snyder is joining from, he is running for office in Texas. He's running for office in Texas. Nate Snyder, he's going to tell us more about that in a minute. And then as well, we have Adit. He is with the one of the funds from the UN, working with the UN. So that's going to be pretty interesting. That will be later on in the show. We'll have Nate come on here shortly. We have, let's see here, a lot of unrest going on. That's going to keep going. We have, looks like I'm getting videos, and these videos are always funny because Europe's, you see these videos coming out of Europe. And Europe, guys, if you're here on the East Coast, flying, or actually anywhere in the US, flying to Europe is like flying across the United States. Okay, so you should probably go over and fly to Europe. Of course, I was just in Paris, and I was just in Italy as well, and I'm overseas quite a bit. But you see a lot of these videos coming out and say, "Oh, Italy has fallen," or "Paris has fallen," and this and that and the other. And guys, we are in much worse shape as far as all that's concerned in the United States. You just don't know it until you get over there, and then you realize that what they're complaining about in the U.S., you are experiencing a much worse. And you get some short video clips. We could do that easily with the different protests that are going on. So that's keep that in mind as you see these things come across. They're going, "Oh, this is bad and this is horrible," and all these types of things. But whatever you see over there, trust me, it's worse over here. You should go over there and look for yourself, because we are in worse shape. All right, I have with me here, I'm going to bring on Nate Snyder. We're going to, as I mentioned, two guests today. Of course, we'll have our normal with Matt Dixon as well. I have with me here Nate Snyder. Nate Snyder. Nate, hey, how are you?
Hey, Bruce, how are you?
Doing great. So, Nate, tell us a little bit about the district that you're running in, and your district that you're running in and the office that you're running for.
I'm running for Congress, a U.S. representative in Florida's 14th district. That encompasses a huge portion of Tampa Bay, a little bit of St. Pete, and the incumbent for that district is Kathy Castor.
So Kathy Castor, and how long has Kathy Castor been in Congress?
I believe Kathy Castor was first elected in 2006. So,
okay.
15 years.
15 years. Not a bad gig, right?
No, not at all. Sounds like she's got a real good job security.
Well, once you're up there, it's kind of one of those things I always noticed. Once you're there, and I'm here in DC, so I see it a lot. And sometimes you get these breakthroughs where people are able to break through, but for the most part, people keep on. So my thing. Been letting my daughter do some of her homework on my computer. Now my mouse is a little funny. I'm gonna have to buy her a new one herself. Hello there, lady. So tell me a little bit about your platform and what differentiates you from Kathy.
Well, what differentiates me from Kathy is that, I believe in your individual rights. She believes that there should be a federal oversight on, your schooling, your charter schools, and and I believe in your individual liberties. I believe that the Constitution was written, and how it's written is how it needs to be followed. Um, you know, I'm focusing heavily on what you are dealing with at the kitchen table when you're having conversations with your family. The high cost of living. Let's tackle inflation. Let's tackle our education system and actually get our children an education. What is happening at the present moment in Washington, D.C., there's not going to be a future left for our children at all. The excessive spending, they are fueling inflation. They are doing nothing to fix inflation at all. And by the time that our kids are old enough to start pursuing jobs, they're not going to be making any money at all. They will be living off the tit of the government.
Well, it's pretty crazy, right? I mean, I've been I've been part of the monetary revolution for over a decade, so I've been saying the whole thing is going to crash for 10 years. So it is interesting to see, when you have total control. When you have total control over the monetary system, like the central bank has, where they can print as much as they want and they can tax as much as they want. I mean, they literally can tax on the front end and the back end as much as they want. They can just take from the people. And actually, the truth is that most of the people, not to insult anybody's intellect, but they just don't realize it's happening. They don't, it's I guess, been the slow boil. I mean, even me, I didn't realize they're taxing 50 or 48% of the gas bill. So when I go fill up my gas tank for $60, 30 of it is taxes. And that's just absolutely ridiculous. And for a lot of people, that's big. And then I was breaking down, for every $100, like, let's just talk about the kids. The kids make $100, right? And 30% off the bat, right, is paying taxes. And then if they go fill up the gas tank, there's another 30% tax, right? So let's say it's like 60 something dollars for the gas tank. So out of that $100, they got to put like 30 something dollars of gas in their tank, or was 60. But I mean, but the rest of it was all tax. 60 something dollars was all tax. It was all tax, and I don't know where it ends. So, how are things going? I love Tampa. I haven't been there in years, but Tampa's nice. How are things going? And you're on the libertarian ticket, right?
I am a libertarian ticket, and it's been historical, actually. The Libertarian Party of Hillsborough County just reopened last year, and upon reopening, on our first shot, we made the ballot for November. So that was historic, first libertarian to accomplish that in 20 years. So this has been it's been eye-opening. This is my first run ever for a political office, so I'm learning an awful lot about what a lot of these guys deal with, and realizing that when you try to go in as a third party, it's that much more difficult. Yeah,
well, that's really the thing, right? I mean, you either have to. Well, it's hard. It's hard. And I saw, so we're probably around the same age. You might be younger than me, but, Ron Paul was one of the first ones I saw. They just really massacred this guy. I mean, he was like, he was on the radio waves. He was on the TV. He was really good at radio, but he had a massive following. And then they decided, all right, that's it. Just pull the plug on this guy. And that was it, right? It was over. That machine is really major. And then the second one that I thought was really interesting was Ross Perot. Bill Clinton, I don't know if you remember, Bill Clinton would have never been president if Ross Perot didn't run. Ross Perot took like 20% of the vote as a libertarian. I mean, this is like crazy numbers. Crazy. 20% of the vote. Knowing what I know now, I wonder if he really got 20% of the vote, or if they just, shifted some of the vote over to him to make sure that Clinton got in. I mean, I don't know. After watching what has happened over the last few years, you realize how easily things are done. And then you start to go back and say, okay, well, the country's actually been, quote unquote, overthrown a number of times over the years. We had 1913 when we set up the central bank. We had the 1930s when we outlawed gold, took all the gold from everybody. We had, of course, JFK, right? I could go down the list. And that's just in the last 100 years, 110 years. Let's talk about the 1860s. When they originally put out fiat money, nobody wants to hear it. They originally started printing fiat money. Abraham Lincoln, everybody loves to say this guy was, I'm not saying he was a horrible guy or anything, but he put us on fiat money. And it wasn't until 1900 that they started the gold standard, and or they tried for 30 years. So that's pretty interesting. So you're running against this person. They are the incumbent. Congratulations on getting on the ballot. Is there a Republican running as well?
Well, the Republicans in Florida don't actually have their primary until August 20th.
Okay.
So there are 5 people running on that ticket. And that actually makes trying to get your message out that much more difficult because nobody's paying attention right now until after August. So, but we're getting it done. We're getting the message on out there. I think once you start letting people realize that the way that you are being taxed is, has actually been ruled a couple of times, not even being correct, especially the amount of times they shot down the income tax and said, no, you can't do that. No, you can. Then for suddenly they, here it is. Could you imagine if you had no weren't paying income tax? It's 38% more money in your pocket every year.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And people just don't realize it. And, first of all, income tax is supposed to be voluntary. Second of all, the central bank started in 1913 and the IRS also started in 1913. And so we've had this, we basically are taxed by the central bank, and then the government is, just kind of operates. But the government, since the central bank is the one that basically levies the tax on the front end and the back end, through inflation or dilution of their holdings and, tax, because even just to service, there's 34 trillion or 34.7 trillion, I think right now in money that we supposedly, and I say supposedly, but we supposedly owe the central bank, because the central bank fronted the paper money to us. The money to service that is actually collected every year. So 1.6 is what they collected, or what they were planning to collect in federal income tax in 2023, and that's what they need to service the debt on that 34 trillion. So that's why they're trying to scheme ways to increase your taxes, because they have to increase your taxes, because next year we're going to be further in debt to the central bank.
Well, next year, if they have their way, you'll have an unrealized tax to pay at 25% and 44.8% in capital gains tax to pay.
It's unbelievable. The unrealized. They tried to do that in Europe. I'll have Matt on in a second. I'm going to ask him. I don't think they got it through, because how can you pay unrealized? I mean, how can that even happen? The markets go up and down, so it's kind of like, I feel like that's a bit like the boogeyman. I don't know why they're doing it. I think that for the most part, these politicians, they do things on purpose most of the time. They you know what I mean? So I don't know why they're pushing that. Probably it's the old, I'm going to go really, really harsh, and then when I give them what I really plan on giving them, they won't say, oh, well, that's not as bad as that. And I think that's what we're looking at. So they're not going to really do the unrealized gains, but they're going to push so much taxes that you would have been like, no way. But at the same time, you're going to be like, oh, well, there's no unrealized gains, so I guess it's not that bad.
That's a little bit better type of ordeal, right?
Yeah.
The unrealized gains is strange, because okay, so you can hit me with an unrealized gains on a house, that I haven't received any type of income on, but do I get? Let's just say that the value of the property drops. Do I get a refund?
Oh, exactly. Then are they paying me? I mean, let's not even talk about Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin, I saw there was a groan across the US. I mean, what in the world? Like, all right, so Bitcoin goes up to 69 and then it goes down to 17. I mean, come on. What are you going to do? All right, so we're coming to the end of this segment here. How can we help? How do people get a hold of you? How can they help you?
We are a third party. Florida is a very expensive state to try to run a campaign on, so we Donations always help. I could use help people making phone calls. You can get information from me from my website at snyderforfl.com.
Snyderforfl.com. Nate Snyder, thanks so much for coming on. I know it's early in Florida. I tell everybody I was just at this government blockchain event, and I said, yeah, it keeps me honest. I'm up there, doing this thing. I finally got into the stride where I was on my other things. So now I wake up before my alarm every day. I guess I'm on the cycle. So thanks so much for coming on. Guys, check him out. Snyder for Florida. Snyderforfl.com. We'll follow up, my man. Thanks for joining.
All right, Bruce. Thanks a lot, man.
Cheers. We're going to bring on the great Matt Dixon. Matt Dixon. Hello, Matt. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah.
Amazing. So, we've had a slew of people that are running for office that want to come on the show. So we're going to start. We'll see. I have another 2 or 3 that want to come on. And of course, we have all our interviews and everything. Everybody loves the show, Matt. They love the show.
Good.
Awesome.
Excellent. So you're expanding the show as well. You're getting more and more viewers, I understand.
We are. We're getting more and more viewers as well. And I guess, it's a good time, too. You know what I mean? It's not too late over in the other side of the world, and it's early over here. And, of course, the TV works well. And, we're having a good time. You do a great job, and I think I do, too. And we're pushing it. So
good.
That's for us. Yeah.
Well, I'll jump in and share my screen.
Oops. Sorry about that. All right. Yep. So, all right, we're on your screen here. We got the map 2024.
Yeah, so I just thought this would be interesting to look at. Nothing in particular, but it's actually quite interesting to see the levels of inflation around the world. So we've got US there. It's measured at 2.9% there, which, it's still obviously almost 50% above. I think it is fractionally out of date because I think inflation's actually ticked up a little bit since then, but maybe PPI I think is 2.9 actually. So that's fair. It's an almost 50%, 45% or whatever above the target rate. So they've still got some work to do there. But quite interestingly, you go to Mexico, 4%. And I think everybody's target is ideally around that 2% mark. Interestingly, you see Brazil 4%, but then you go down some of the high, you got Argentina, 249%. So the cost of your goods are going up 2.5 times every year. So you buy a loaf of bread, if it costs $1 this year, you're talking $2.50 next year, aren't you? Or is it $3.50? If it goes up to 2%, it's a lot anyway. So just quite interesting again. China 1%. Next door we've got Russia 6.9%, which again is actually pretty unsustainable long term. But the advantages sometimes of having high inflation is it actually inflates your debt away. And there could be an argument to say that that's maybe why the US have allowed inflation to get slightly out of hand. It did go quite a lot higher before, because high inflation actually allows you to inflate the debt away. So the value of that debt is actually worth less because money is worth less every year. And so as you're printing more and more money, yes, you got inflation, so the cost of goods is going up, but actually the real value of your debt, because the debt, if you borrow $1 billion, that $1 billion, basically, if you're inflating the money supply, that $1 billion is actually worth less when you take inflation into account. And so it's actually in the interests of countries sometimes when they've got a massive debt burden to allow inflation to run away a little bit because it just lessens the burden. So as I say, Russia there, then you've got Iran. So all those more troubled and more closed economies like Iran 37.5%, but you've got Egypt 32%, Sudan 145%, and many others. Australia had a rate decision today. They actually kept the rates on hold. They're at 3.5%, but a little bit like the Fed, they're a little bit concerned about the high rate of inflation, but they didn't raise rates. I think they're also concerned about the rate of growth in the economy, so they don't want to raise rates. So they're a little bit trapped, a little bit like the US. But we've had a nice little breakout. Actually, I'll probably go first of all before we look at dollar index, and I'll keep it reasonably short because I think you have another guest again later, don't you? Or have you got another?
We do. We have Edith from the UN. It's a very interesting interview, actually.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yep.
So just have a very quick run around the markets then, just for a recap. So Bitcoin has been really interesting. So I think that we've had 5 waves higher here, and I measured the Fibonacci extension. So for example, if that's wave 1, that's wave 2. Wave 3 actually took us to exactly 2.618. So it's just amazing over and over again. These fib extensions, you're expecting wave 3 to go to a minimum 1.618. Next target will be 2.618. Next target after that will be 4.236. That's right up here. So we've already got a wave 3 precisely equaled to 2.618. That Fibonacci golden ratio, it's 2.618. So that's quite amazing. So then we've got a small wave 4 down, a wave 5 up. So that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 completes one cycle of an Elliott wave cycle, and then we get a correction down. And I think we may well retest this trend line here. We mentioned that the other day. So the good thing is we actually came out the other day when the price was right down here, and we said this is potentially a triangle, an ABCDE triangle. The E wave is the only one that's allowed to overshoot the triangle trend lines, which is exactly what happened here. But it's the only one. It's not allowed to overshoot too much. So it overshot to about the maximum it's allowed to, and then price came back up. The good thing is we see it come up in 5 clear waves, as I say, with the wave 3 exactly 2.618. So for me, it's a perfectly valid wave, but those 5 wave cycle make up a larger wave 1. And then we're getting a wave 2 back. Then the next wave, once wave 2 is complete, and as I say, I think wave 2 could well just challenge this trend line here, this triangle trend line around here where I've got the arrow cross over here. That's a reasonable target. It's not a guarantee, but it's a reasonable target for the wave 2 pullback. But then if we get then a wave 3 to the upside, that should be very, very impulsive. Wave 3 is normally the most powerful, impulsive, strong wave in the direction of the trend. And the direction of the trend is currently higher with Bitcoin, even though just showing short term here, I'll just zoom out a little bit, just so you can see. You can actually see that the main trend is actually consistently higher on Bitcoin. And this is just what's called a consolidation, a sideways consolidation. A continuation pattern is a triangle. So that's what we have here, this continuation pattern. And then price should continue to the upside. And if we get a solid wave 3 from here, we would then expect that to be at least 1.618. So it might be just worth measuring that for you to give us a target. If this is indeed, it won't take me a moment to do. If this is indeed a larger wave 1 from the top of that wave 5 to the bottom of where I started counting there, if that is indeed a wave 1 and wave 2 were to retrace here, the wave 3 target would be 1.618, which would be the minimum target I would expect for wave 3, takes us to 76,000, 76,500 for Bitcoin. But if prices were to go then to 2.618, the next one is 85,000. So I have actually said that that's the kind of favored target zone for me, is the 84, 85,000 sort of area for Bitcoin. So if this is a triangle, which indeed it looks like, and the thrust looks really correct because it's a 5-wave move, then we get a pullback and we should continue impulsively to the upside. So I believe very soon we should see a new all-time high for Bitcoin. So again, no absolute guarantees. We can't give advice here, but the charts are telling us that this is the most likely outcome at the moment, is that we should see a new all-time high for Bitcoin fairly soon. But just short term, we do expect probably a bit more of a pullback, possibly to this support zone here, this diagonal line here, which is signaled by this big red arrow. So from there, I'm expecting higher. Same with most other cryptos. As I said yesterday, I won't run through them all, but we've had a nice little bounce back on BNB. We saw it still in consolidation yesterday, and we said, because of all this consolidation, sideways, choppy action, we should break higher and again break above the previous high of 645. We should break above that for BNB. We'll look briefly, I'll just run through them quite quickly. Again, we see something looking reasonably impulsive to the upside, a bit of a correction downside on ICP, Internet Computer. So again, because this looks corrective, choppy, overlapping, I do think probably we'll get some movement up sometime, but we may have a bit more movement down. If Bitcoin does correct a bit more, we may move down a bit beforehand, a little bit more beforehand. Ethereum's going to be, it's virtually the same chart pattern again. You can see there how corrective and sideways it is, and that's looks like what you would call a bull flag. So you have a flagpole here, you have the flag waving in the wind, downward pointing flag, but it's kind of sideways as well. And then you'd expect at some point to break above this previous high here. It's not an all-time high, but the local high is 4,090. So I would expect in the reasonably near future for Ethereum to push up above there. Litecoin again is in consolidation mode at the moment, but again, I do think we're going to get a good push up on Litecoin. Above this high would be the obvious target. That was $88 there. So I expect us to break above $88. We're $81 now, so it could break quite a bit above there. The next target above that, above there, but the target would be 100%, would be $92. And that's just the 100% extension. That's this wave measured here, transposed to here. 100% takes us to 92. 1.618 would take us to $103 for Litecoin. So plenty of upside potential there, and probably not so much downside at the moment. So risk reward is looking quite good on Litecoin. So we'll just have a quick whiz around, looking at some of the indices like gold, for example. Gold may still have a bit more to go down in this correction because at the moment, it's possible the correction's over. We could have the wave C complete here. It's really difficult to tell. It's a little bit choppy, but I still believe it's corrective to the downside. That is clear in my mind that this wave here, this move up here overlaps this move down here. You can see the move down to that level is overlapped here, moving up to here. And again, we get another overlap here of this wave here. So that tells me it's corrected to the downside. So I believe I'm right in saying it's some kind of ABC, some kind of maybe a multiple correction. Maybe it's AB, you'd have C here, it'd be ABWX, ABY. So probably we're going to get one more wave down in gold, most likely, before we then push to new all-time highs for gold. So I think we're in a bit of corrective mode on a few of the assets now. And I think that might possibly include Bitcoin and the crypto assets. But gold looks as though it's probably going to move down a little bit. And we've looked at oil. I've said for a long time that I'm expecting oil actually to at least reach this 100%, which is $77. We're 78 now, so we're almost there. So we've been expecting that. So it's actually following our expectations. So we measured from the top here to the bottom of this wave. We just transposed it to the top of this wave, and that gave us our target here of $77. We could dip lower to 1.618. That'd be perfectly acceptable. So if this is an A, then a B up and a C down, the most common relationship of the C wave to the A wave is 100%. So in other words, they're equal waves in length. So this wave would equal this wave in length. That would take us to $77. But it's also, that is the most common. Probably the second most common would be the C wave is 1.618 times the A wave. If that were the case, it would take oil down to $73. Now, if that's the case, it's probably telling us that for the time being, they perhaps might avoid escalation in the Middle East with Israel. So I know there's a lot of talk going on at the moment. I know America are trying to influence Israel, maybe not to go ahead with that, the incursion into Rafah. So
I think it's a lot of show. We're like, here's 26 billion. Oh, don't go in. I mean,
probably right. Everything's about money, isn't it? Unfortunately. Yeah. So that's oil. I'm expecting probably a bit lower in oil. So and as you say, it's all scripted. I think beforehand they've all made their agreements probably, and it's all about money. So DXY, so dollar index here. Again, a little bit of lack of clarity because we didn't reach the upside target quite on dollar index. So we may push up and revisit that target, or maybe we've started to move down. This could be what's called the leading diagonal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where it's the one case where overlap is allowed, as actually you have what's called the leading diagonal. You can also have an ending diagonal. So it never occurs in a wave 3, but in wave 1 and 5 it can occur. So potentially this could be 1, 2, 3 and working on wave 4, and then we could continue down. If that's the case, it means actually the dollar's already peaked. That's the that's actually the conclusion you would draw from that if that's the case. But it's actually not clear at the moment, so I wouldn't like to lay a bet either way. Although I would say at the moment it's looking like we have A, B, C higher. So I think most probably we should expect more downside now for US dollar. So maybe expectations for interest rates will start to decline in the US. So we did have those shocking GDP figures, which twice in a row, 2 quarters in a row now, came out way under expectation. So US growth is falling off a cliff. We've also had much weaker than expected NFP last Friday, non-farm payrolls. So these are the first signs of the US economy slowing. So with that in mind, assuming inflation continues to decline, I think we'll probably see lower interest rates sooner than people were anticipating. I know Chairman Powell, Fed Chair Powell, was saying that they will resist reducing interest rates until they get more data through about softening inflation, etc. But I believe that inflation will come through, and I think, if I remember rightly, it's the 15th of this month, so only about a week away now. Just a week tomorrow, isn't it? I think we have CPI figures, so these will be watched absolutely eagerly, hawkeye, watching these figures, the CPI figures, because if, as I actually expect, they're going to come out lower than expected, then that will be a massive boost for risk assets. So whilst we might be choppy and we might tread water until then, because the markets never want to take a position before they know the data, but when that data comes out, if it's softer than expected, if the CPI comes out lower than expected, you can expect a lowering in expectation for interest rates. In other words, they're going to be dropping rates then sooner than what is now expected. This will be a massive boost for risk assets. So this is what I believe is going to drive Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin in particular, to an all-time high, and other Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies into a rally, and possibly even the SPX, which I'll just show now. Possibly SPX will take us to another brand new all-time high. So maybe this correction from here, again, there's quite a bit of overlap here. So maybe this is just an ABC correction of some sort to the downside. I'd need to expand it and look on shorter time frames. I mean, it's hard to say right now, but it does look kind of choppy. I'd have to look at it and analyze it properly. But maybe this is just a correction that we had from the all-time high that we saw here on the S&P 500, which was all-time high there was 5,280. That was the all-time high. We're currently 5,184. So we're not a long way off. We're actually just 100 points away from a new all-time high. So again, we could be moving impulsively to the upside. So if we see lowering of expectations on interest rates, you can be reasonably confident, if that happens, that we're going to see a new all-time high on not just Bitcoin, but also the S&P 500. So that's interesting. But what is really interesting for me is, even if we see a new all-time high on Bitcoin, I do actually think that we will be retraced quite deeply, because this, if it's a triangle, remember I said yesterday, triangles are what's called a pre-terminal wave. The thrust from the triangle is the terminal wave. So the thrust should be in 5 larger waves. We've had 5 small waves making up wave 1. We then got wave 2 down, 3 up, 4 down, 5 up. That will make the whole cycle thrust from the triangle, but that will be the terminal thrust. So in this particular larger cycle, in Bitcoin, which again, you're breaking them all down, this is some kind of wave 3, this is some kind of wave 4 triangle, and then the 5th wave will be the end of the cycle. Then we would expect quite a substantial correction from new all-time highs. Now, I'm not saying what those will be. We just did examine if it's 100% 1.618 84, 85,000 potential initial target will be perfectly reasonable for Bitcoin. But then that should be the completion of a cycle, because this triangle should be the pre-terminal wave. The thrust from the triangle should be the terminal, and then we should get a good sized pullback on Bitcoin. So we need to be aware of all this and monitor it very, very closely. But the data is what will drive it, and the geopolitics is what will drive it. But the data, I believe, will be softening, and so we should start to see, we should get a real reason for a crypto rally in the near future if that CPI falls. And just finally, just have a quick look through all the meme coins. They're basically all pretty well flat. Let's just see Bruce's favorite, Doge there, virtually flat, 1% higher, 0.96 higher. So they're pretty flat. Booker memes down 2%, but the market's relatively flat. One of the best performers right now is Sol, up 2.4%, and Bitcoin at 1.34. So that's pretty much a wrap for today, Bruce. But overall, I think it's quite promising that we should be beginning to see the first steps of a move towards a new all-time high for Bitcoin, S&P 500, and some other crypto assets with it.
Well, it's yeah. I mean, that's, you go up and you go down and you go all around. I think that and there's a very finite supply. That's what people should understand as well about the Bitcoins. There's a very finite supply, very small supply, and we are now more in a cycle of now they're producing less and less by mining, and then we also there's a lot of stuff being built on Bitcoin as well, and a lot of times that takes Bitcoin out of circulation almost all the time.
Amazing fundamentals, amazing foundation, and amazing technicals as well for Bitcoin. It's really looking positive at the moment. And I think it was today or yesterday, we actually went past the 1 billion transactions on Bitcoin since it was created. 1 billion, 1,000 million transactions on Bitcoin. So it is the adoption rate is picking up. We looked at those inflation figures early on all around the world, and all those places, particularly with high inflation, like Iran, Argentina, Nigeria, I didn't show there, but I think they've got 26%, I think, inflation, which is extremely high. So all these places, even though it's actually still illegal, I think it's still illegal in Nigeria, I'm not sure, but actually it's got the highest adoption rate in the world of cryptocurrency. So yeah, even when they try to ban it, it doesn't matter. People want it.
Even when they try to ban it, it doesn't matter. People still want it. You have something that anybody around the world can try and put the blockchain on their computer and run a node, or put it on their server and run a node and confirm transactions and confirm that the historical line of the blockchain is this, that those billion transactions are here. They're all there. And so it's very interesting. One of the most interesting inflation numbers you came out with was China. 1% inflation in China?
Yeah, but we do know that, I say we know, it's been alleged that China do manipulate their numbers.
No, come on.
I didn't say that, but I've heard that they actually manipulate their numbers. So, we know that they've got some real issues, and they've actually created a lot of money, pumped a lot of money and liquidity into
the system. Well, that's what we've noticed. So Trump always used to say that they were the best currency manipulators in the world. That's what he would say about the Chinese.
Yeah, so
we're right, doing it.
Sounds good anyway.
It does. It sounds really good. Well, awesome. I have Advit Nath. I'm going to bring him on. I did this interview a couple of days ago. He's with the International Fund for Agricultural Development, and really interesting guy, really nice guy. He's based in Milan, but I'll pull that up. That's a really great interview, and really hats off to the Government Blockchain Association for putting on such a wonderful event with such high caliber people. But awesome report, Matt.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to run away to a meeting. Thanks for having me, and catch up tomorrow.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
The great Matt Dixon. All right, here we go. Advit Nath. This is Advit Nath. He is with the International Fund for Agricultural Development. at the United Nations. Very interesting interview. Really great guy that I had with him. Let me go ahead and play this for you. This is at the Government Blockchain Association. You see GBA right behind me. Their event, The Future of Money, Governance, and the Law. Here we go.
And we are back here at the GBA's, the Future of Money, Governance, and Law, with their signature event here in Washington, D.C. Our good friend Gerard Daché and his wife do a wonderful job putting this together and getting really amazing people here as well. I have with me here Advit Nath. He is the International Fund of Agriculture and Development with the United Nations. We were at the event last night, trading cards and playing around and talking about the wonderful things that you guys do and have done. And we actually were both in Paris together. So tell me a little bit, Advit, about your work with this development fund and what brought you here to DC.
Well, thanks for having me, Bruce. So I work for the International Fund for Agricultural Development. What this is, it's basically an international bank and also a fund that supports smallholder farmers globally. We operate in 100 countries, and we're in that last mile. So that last mile in rural areas all over the world, we support smallholder farmers.
Interesting. So first of all, it must be a lot of fun, and it must be very rewarding to help these people who are maybe underdeveloped, I would say underprivileged as well, putting their projects forward. Can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe some of the success that you guys have had?
Sure. I mean, we're there to support people in the rural communities, and actually they do most of the work. And we have people on the ground in about 50 countries, and these are frontline people. So I'm in the background. I'm the finance director, so I support the machinery that supports the front line. And we're humbled to work with people who are, happy people, but they have a lot of challenges. And with COVID and the climate change issues, things are much worse for farmers. Now, farmers provide 1/3 of the food supply. So probably one of your meals was by a smallholder farmer, and they've been struggling lately. So we're trying to do our best. We have some projects all over the world. We have about 300 projects.
Wow.
And I'll tell you a little bit more about a couple that I just came back from as well.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear about it. So now COVID, it really impacted so many things. I mean, even my daughter's school, she's at 14 now. We're getting her into high school. We're taking her around, but things changed even at that level. You know what I mean? So how have you seen that impact these local farmers in the rural areas?
Well, it's caused a lot of difficulty for them because the farmers have assets, and those are the assets they rely on to be able to produce food and to feed the world. The problem is when they get into difficulty because COVID caused massive difficulties for them personally, they had to sell off a lot of their assets. And that means they can't produce food because they had to focus on feeding themselves.
Yep.
So the issues that we're seeing with COVID and climate and also just like technology, lack of access for technology, is causing our farmers to not have the ability to do what they do. So we're trying to also provide financing to them. That's one of the big things we do. We issue sustainable bonds on the capital markets. We also get a lot of funding from 180 member states. And the idea is to give funding and also loans to smallholder farmers so that way they can invest, they can do better despite the massive challenges we're seeing in the world today.
Interesting. So how does that work for a local or rural farmer? I mean, they apply for a grant. I guess they apply at the UN or some, maybe your site.
Yeah, there's a process. So the way it works is we work a lot through governments because we have programs that the governments say that these are their national priorities.
I got it.
We guide them as well. We work with them on making sure that, for example, women farmers are given more resources, given more opportunities, as well as youth, because we're focused on trying to empower folks in the field. And the idea is that we work through governments, but also to get financing from the private sector, engage the private sector, and other partners, so that with crowd and finance, so more funding can go to farmers directly.
Amazing. So where are you based?
Well, it's not a hardship location. It's Rome, Italy, which is really nice. But we work in 50 countries around the world, so I'm on the road often, trying to support our teams as well.
Now, are you Italian?
I'm not Italian.
Okay.
No, I'm originally from the Himalayas in India, but I love Italy. My two kids are born in Italy, so my daughter and my son are both sort of more Italian than anything else.
That's interesting. What a great culture. I mean, I told you my wife is family's from there. They're all citizens. They'll all accept me. They laughed at me years ago, and I'm like, yeah, you're laughing now. I should have a passport too for Italy.
I think we all want to be Italian secretly,
right?
And you have a direct line there, as I know. So one day.
Thank you. Well, actually, we were in during my daughter's confirmation, and they were talking about this bishop and that bishop, all Italian guys too. So a lot of people, there's a lot of great Italians. Rome is a wonderful place. So amazing work. You did mention that you would talk to maybe about one or two of the instances. I'm super curious.
Sure, happy to. I was in Bangladesh recently, and we were there to film some of our projects as well in virtual reality. So we had a team from Milan that came in there. They put on their patented cameras, and they filmed in our projects with the permission of the farmers, of course. And what was great is to see how resilient the people in the rural areas are. I was at the bottom, so we would travel from north to south of Bangladesh. We were at the bottom of Bangladesh, and I saw 5 kilometers, or roughly a little less than that in terms of miles, across the water, and all of that was land that farmers were on. And it just disappeared, and that's what farmers had to move to other pieces of land, and we're supporting them to build, to become entrepreneurs, to support their livelihoods, to rebuild again. So there were some great projects we saw, but that's just one of about sort of 15 sites we visited in about 6 or 7 projects we have going on right now.
Wow, amazing. Well, I know Bangladesh, it's one place, there's a lot of great minds. I know over the years I've worked with some Bangladesh guys and hard workers. Right, very hardworking people.
Yeah. No, it's just resilience, intelligence, just brilliant people. And if you look at the country, it's a wonderful example of a country doing extremely well. And in terms of the growth rates, they've done extremely well. So I think it's the resilience of the people working together. I saw governments working with the people. There was just a quick anecdote. Is in one of the villages in the south of Bangladesh, there was a government minister that was there with us and the farmers. And the farmers said, look, I need you to build a road. I need to have more sort of grass in certain areas to be planted. And what was really amazing for me, having worked in government as well, is that the minister said, okay, one by one, we'll get to it. And you never hear that from bureaucrats. So that was really, really impressive.
Well, sometimes I see that in the UAE as well, right? There, it's a smaller bureaucracy, right? And so sometimes you can get stuff done a lot faster, right? So that's pretty interesting. So I know we were just in Paris as well. Wonderful event there. That was the Paris Blockchain Week. You guys have seen a lot of the interviews that we did from there. We're now at the Government Blockchain Association. How are you seeing blockchain? I know back in the day we always used to say, blockchain was going to fix everything, but here we are a decade later, 5 years, 6 years later, and it still hasn't permeated all the levels where maybe we thought it would. What are you seeing?
So I'm still very excited about blockchain technology, and I think that we've been building over the last 5 years, and I do agree with you. I think we need to have much more use cases and implementations so that we use the power of this technology, especially for social good, which is one of the things we're doing. One of the things we've just done recently is we've launched a solution. Again, this is a solution that we've worked with partners in the private sector on. It's to trace funds from donor to farmer on a blockchain, and we use many blockchains for that. As well as, so this is not just digital money, but fiat money. So money like US dollars, Kenyan shillings actually gets traced on a blockchain. And of course, we're now using stablecoin to try and test that in Rwanda. I'll be in Rwanda in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
But the idea is that I would love to see blockchain technology being used a lot more for social impact.
Amazing. Well, that is one of the best use cases, right? Being able to identify the source of different things, whether it's food or whether it's parts for a plane. I mean, we see what's going on with Boeing right now. Poor guys, right? I mean, I'm just like, gosh. And every time I get in a plane too, you're flying around a lot. Do you think about it every once in a while?
Yes. I mean, I'm glad the regulators are there looking at this and making sure that we're all safe when we fly.
Amazing. So where do you go from here? What are your next steps?
So I'm going to be heading back to Rome today, and then I'll take back a lot of the nice, interesting information, also nice, great people I met here, as well as some of the partners that we may be partnering with soon. And I'll be in Rwanda in a couple of weeks, so we'll be doing a little bit more. We'll test out the concept of DAOs in a farmer environment. We'll be testing stablecoin movements from Rome to Kigali, the capital, and then into rural areas and off-ramping it to DRC, the neighboring country. So we're doing some very exciting things, and we'll be filming in virtual reality again. And then I'll look forward to doing more with you and perhaps with the GBA as well here.
Well, amazing. I know I mentioned the CC Forum as well. I'm going to send you some more information about that. It's a wonderful event. It's the end of May. I don't know if it'll work out with your schedule, but if you're in Europe, we'd love for you to join. Thank you so much for coming on. If there's any last note that you'd like to put, a website, anything like that, now is a good time for it.
Sure. Thanks so much, Bruce. I really appreciate this. Yeah, check out our website with Trace Technology. It's basically www.traceblockchain.io. And check out what we're doing at the United Nations using blockchain.
Awesome. Have it. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Bruce. Pleasure.
We'll see you soon.
All right, so there you have it. Advent Nath, he's doing important work out there, helping a lot of people. So we were happy to have him on. I wanted to point out a couple of things. We only have a couple minutes here, but one of the things he mentioned was the DAO, and I have to tell you that at this event, at the Government Blockchain Association event, the DAO was something that was mentioned a number of times. And I wanted to bring that to light because, over the years, it has been kind of one of those things, should you have a DAO? Should you not have a DAO? When they first started this DAO thing, a lot of us kind of looked sideways at it. It took me a long time to really start to come around on it. But that setup appears to be very well accepted. So, keep that in mind. I wanted to drop a note here as well for consensus. Consensus is coming up, guys. You do not want to miss this. If you are at all interested in learning more, in meeting the people who are running everything, Consensus is the event, May 29 through 31 in Austin. Everybody will be here. We'll be there reporting live, but you have people from the Treasury. You have Tom Emmer from the Majority Whip of the U.S. House. You have the Federal Reserve is there, the SEC, on and on and on. All of the big investment firms are going to be there. Everybody is planning to be there. And then as well, we are throwing our Washington Elite Gala. The Washington Elite Gala, we're throwing that again. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's our signature event. We're throwing that on the 30th. You can register at Luma, lu.ma/Washington Elite Gala. You can register. And then as well for Consensus, you can get a 15% discount on your tickets. Now, I do want to pull back the tickets here because the tickets are moving very quickly. Right now, the pass is...
And we are back here at...
Right now, you can see right here, they have a discount on these passes, and then 15% is more on that. But these discounts are not going to be there for long. They're not going to be there for long, so make sure that you get it. Cheers, guys. See you in a few hours.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost. Become a champion of free speech and help to reshape the future of media.